Jeff Zeleny, you cover the White House for CNN along with Pamela and some other members of our team. The president is said to be in a state that people haven't seen him in.
And that's because it's Michael Cohen. There is no one closer to this president than Michael Cohen. Potentially his children, but not even in that way. Michael Cohen is an appendage of the president in every gamut. There is not one part of the president's life that Michael Cohen has not been involved in. The politics, the business, everything else. That is why he is furious. You could see the look in his face when he was sitting with his military commanders, which was extraordinary in and of itself. It took many people in the White House by surprise that he was saying that, but there was no talking him off the ledge, if you will. I'm told he was as furious this morning. He's remained furious. The question, as Pamela was saying, what is he going to do about it? He's been mad before. He's been seething before. Is this a different moment? That's what we're still reporting out. But he is certainly being presented with a range of options, including firing Rod Rosenstein, firing Jeff Sessions, something he's not been able to do, been willing to do, Republicans advising him not to. We'll see if he does anything. But that is the key question here. What is he going to do about this? I do believe that is why he is staying here in Washington, not going to South America. On Friday, several days between now and then, he's at least considering something. And
with the report that Rosenstein signed off on this raid of Michael Cohen's office, hotel, and home, a lot of people are speculating that Rosenstein's job might really be the one that is in jeopardy.
Sort of, but let's play this out. First, if he wants to take out Rosenstein, what does the Attorney General do? What does Jeff Sessions do? Does he sit there and say this is okay? What does the Congress do? Because we know Mueller doesn't report to the Attorney General. He reports to Rosenstein. My point is, does the Congress then say the only reason he's replacing Rosenstein is potentially to put somebody in place who puts a clamp on the Mueller investigation? The president doesn't play chess. We saw that in the Comey replacement. Anybody watching that in Washington is going to say, if you take out Comey, it's going to get worse. I'm looking at the Rosenstein issue saying I can understand why somebody playing checkers would do that. I want to avoid the near-term pain. If you take him out, though, the second dimension problems are a lot more significant than he thinks.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here, Laura. I mean, what will Congress do? What will Sessions do if he fires Rosenstein? Nothing.
Well, and that's pretty much why everyone's looking at this and being in balking, thinking what is going to be the recourse and the domino effect of all this. But remember, you would have to do the equivalent of if you were to fire Rosenstein, it doesn't automatically bounce back to Jeff Sessions. It then goes to somebody who's now the Associate Attorney General and then the head of the Office of Legal Counsel. You'd have to assume if you're Donald Trump.
You're talking about control of the Russia investigation.
Over the Russia investigation, exactly. And so bouncing it off of Rosenstein does not mean that it goes back to the person who has already recused himself. You'd have to be betting, if you were a gambling man like Trump, to say that both of those two people in the line of succession would be willing to also fire or clamp down on Mueller's investigation. And remember, Mueller has a built-in protection here. He's not there simply at the will or the pleasure of the President of the United States or Rod Rosenstein or whoever may be in the position to fire him. He's got a good cause and a dereliction of duty requirement to be fired. And if that is found, Congress gets to weigh in and say, okay, I see that you fired this person. It's in writing, the reason for doing so under the statute. I will now have a hearing to investigate whether good cause was actually found. And so you're exactly right. We're talking about the idea of it's not going to end. It won't be the beginning of the end. It'll be pretty much the start of a brand new investigation. And now Congress will have its fingers in the president.
Speaking of Jeff Sessions, he was at the White House just now. There was an event honoring Alabama football. He was asked if he had spoken to President Trump. Take a listen.
Mr. Attorney General, have you spoken with the president today?
Hey, not today. Roll Tide.
Not today, roll Tide. But President Trump made it very clear about the special counsel Mueller and whether or not he thinks he has the power to fire him. The White House said today that they've been advised that he does, and President Trump even spoke about this yesterday during that briefing that you're talking about.
It's a disgrace. It's frankly a real disgrace. It's an attack on our country in a true sense. It's an attack on what we all stand for.
And he goes on to say, why don't I just fire Mueller? I think it's a disgrace. What we'll see what happens. But who is he mad at more right now? Mueller referred this case to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, but he actually didn't enact the search warrant. That was the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I believe he's the angriest at Jeff Sessions. That is the beginning of all of this, because he has never forgiven him for recusing himself from this more than a year ago. I believe Rod Rosenstein is right to blow there. It seems the anger, at least from what we're hearing from people talking to the president today, is more directed at those two gentlemen more than Bob Mueller. But I think going back to those comments there, the president was asked about firing Mueller. He did the rest of it on his own. He brought up Jeff Sessions on his own as he was sitting there with the nation's top military commanders. That's what we should be talking about.
To talk about a life or death issue, whether or not they're going to launch any sort of attack on Syria.
And many presidents, many advisors would sort of welcome a serious conversation as opposed to talking about politics. But the president started it with this. So this is what's going through his mind now. That by him bringing up Jeff Sessions, he still, I believe, is advised from people on the Hill he talks to and others that firing Jeff Sessions would be a bridge too far. I'm not sure if Rod Rosenstein is in that same category or not. This is the president's decision.
Phil, I'm interested. You worked for the FBI and the CIA. The president described this raid on Michael Cohen's office, home, and hotel as an attack on our nation.
Yeah.
You're somebody that actually knows what an attack on our nation is. What was your take when you heard that?
Two takes. First, if you're in the line investigative or analytic position, as I was at the Bureau in a leadership position, you're going to say, look, we got a job to do. And that is whether you're the dog catcher, the mayor, the president, if you've got probable cause to go into a lawyer's office, his hotel room, his residence, you're going to follow probable cause. If Jake Tapper did something wrong, if I did something wrong, doesn't matter. We still follow the facts. So in some sense, you're stepping back and saying, actually, this heartens me in terms of what the American public did. On the other hand, you're saying the President of the United States is suggesting that in a country where a 6th grader, an 8th grader, or a 12th grader is taught we are all born equal, we're all equal under the law, that the president himself can say, I think it's appropriate for me to determine where an investigation goes. Boy, that looks like a third world dictatorship. That doesn't look like the United States to me.